There is at this point one of my favorite shots in the whole. I could recreate it, but I feel like I would really probably hurt myself very badly. But there's a great, my favorite shot in the movie, um, is Barton does this thing where he hooks his feet into the writing desk and he leans the chair back on two legs, and the camera goes way up high, and you just and for a minute it because his feet are just slightly off screen because they're hooked into the desk. Um, and he's leaning back and the shot is overhead and the carpet's below him. He just appears for a split second to just be floating above the carpet. I have nothing to say about this other than every frame a painting. Like, it looks beautiful. It's just a cool looking shot, and I love it. It's just him floating above it all, thinking and dreaming and trying to come up with an idea, and it's great. Um, Cool. Okay. There's also a great, another great shot in the scene too is the push into the paper. The camera's the super close up, the extreme close up into the paper. Again, it feels like those moments of Charlie laughing or crying, violence or sex. It's like if we can push past the surface, past the paper, we'll get to the story, which is somehow hiding on the other side of a blank sheet of paper, just like Charlie was on that wall, and there's a couple of people over there on that wall, and the tie and all the things in the movie. Um, cool. Barton goes, Geisler. Um, no, there's no mosquitoes in Los Angeles. Angeles is a desert. Mosquitoes grow in the swamp. The he, I'm just gonna keep doing it because I love Geisler so much. Um, he um he goes to see some a wrestling picture with Wallace Beery, the actor who he's writing the movie for, who we don't really meet. Um, is we see scenes from the movie, but it's just this big wrestler going, "I will destroy him," over and over and over again, which is not helpful to Barton Fink at all. Although it is a beautiful shot of him sitting, and we've seen so many of these shots, like in Sunset Boulevard, and of like a movie projector and the smoke and the him sitting there watching the movie. Um, okay. Um, he it's not helping. And we learn that they're simple story. He's supposed to write something pretty simple. Geisler says, he says it's a wrestling picture. What do you mean to draw you a roadmap? Like, it's simple, and Audrey describes them as simple morality tales, good versus evil. And there's a good wrestler and a bad wrestler, and they're gonna fight, and the good guys win and protect people. It's one way to think about the wrestling picture like this in the 1940s or late the early, like 1940, basically 41. Is it's like a superhero movie today, right? Superhero movies are pretty simple. There's a good guy and there's a bad guy, and they're gonna fight, and the good guy's gonna rescue somebody, and the good guys win, and that's the end of the movie. And that's all superhero movies are basically like that, and the wrestling pictures are like that. And Barton's being asked to do something really simple. Mm, Audrey goes to help him. Interestingly, she says, "You don't have to put your soul into it, Barton." But Barton does want to put his soul into it. Um, he wants it to be more than that. He doesn't just want to make a simple movie about good guys versus bad guys. He wants something that speaks to his soul, so he can really connect with the people. Um, he immediately gets distracted by one of the better reveals in the movie, which is, again, I mentioned in this movie, repeated over and over and over again. There's a thing in the front, like the wallpaper, and then when you take it off, you get to see what's on the other side. Well, this repeats again. W.P. Mayhew is one of the greatest novels in American history, or novelists in American history. And Audrey, and that's the front, right? The front of him is he's the greatest novelist ever. And Audrey reveals what's going on behind the curtain on the other side of that wallpaper, which is that, and we already learned that he's a drunk. Now we learn he's a fraud, and that's what's been revealed to Barton. On the surface, we have Bill Mayhew, the writer. He's so excited. But what really happens is that Mayhew is a fraud and a drunk, and Audrey has been the one that's been writing his stories for him to help him out. And again, she says, "Don't judge, don't condescend. You got to accept people where they are." And she gives him but Barton's so excited to just like, this guy's a phony, right? He wants to judge, he wants to condemn, and he's encouraged to have sympathy and empathy for people, and just not and also to listen instead of talking. But Barton wants to give him the great W.P. Mayhew. He wants to give him a big speech. Um, and then him and Audrey have sex, and there's a cute joke, by the way, which is in old Hollywood movies. The rule was that you could have a man and a woman in a bedroom, but somebody's feet had to be on the ground at all times. It was like a morality rule because if both their feet were not on the ground, that means they're in the bed, and that was too racy for like 1930. And so the rule was you got to put somebody's got to have their foot on the ground. So there's a big moment where the camera zooms into Barton's feet coming off of the floor, and that's what it's supposed to indicate sex. Interestingly, the movie there's something very strange happens. The camera leaves Audrey and Barton and heads over into the bathroom where it goes into the drain pipe. It's a very, very odd decision, and I hope for this class it reminded you of David Lynch heading into the ear in Blue Velvet, or the camera, because the camera heads into the ear in Blue Velvet, or the camera going into the box in Mulholland Drive. It's one of those signals of like going places you are not supposed to go, seeing things you're not supposed to see, right? I mean, you got the sink, you can see that right on the surface, but the depths, the plumbing, Barton's supposed to plumb those depths. Well, here are the depths the plumber would go, is inside the pipes. Um, yeah, and that's when and like Mulholland Drive, like Blue Velvet, that moment indicates a big shift in what the movie is doing. It's a whole other kind of realm. Um, cool. All right, this is going pretty good. Barton, he got the mosquito again, and then he hits her, and then suddenly he hits her to kill the mosquito. She doesn't move, blood pours out, and Barton loses his mind. Now, this movie's full of crazy reversals. One of the first of all, it's crazy that she's dead, but I think everybody's immediate reaction is they're like, "Oh, it's a dream," because Barton's so worried and stressed all the time, and the fact that she's dead. Apparently, she bleeds a lot, but then why did she only start bleeding when Barton slaps the mosquito? Like, why does that cause all this blood to gush out? And also, like, how did she die like that? It's very confusing that, how did someone next to you got sliced up and their blood only came out when you touched them? Like, what is happening? We are in unrealistic territory. This is a kind of nightmare, but it's really happening to Barton. Um, one of the things that Barton does here, what Barton Fink does with the camera work that I really like, is you assume it's a dream, but then there's a shot where Barton goes over to the desk and you see him sitting there, and you can see the dead body behind him. That lets you know this is not a dream. If he's looking at it and he sees it, you could be like, maybe he's hallucinating, maybe he's dreaming. But if we can see the dead body and he can't, that means it's there, right? Because he's looking away from the dead body, but it's still on camera. That's the moment, the bizarre moment where you have to accept the fact that this movie has really changed. And suddenly there's this very mysterious dead person here. By the way, classic horror movie thing to have sex you're not supposed to have, and then there's some kind of murder or ghosty situation. It's a crazy moment. Um, and Barton's losing his mind. And everybody likes to make fun of Barton's pajamas at this point, but he has it was a kind of male undergarment. It's like a tank top connected to boxer shorts, and he's wearing this like one piece. It's an old fashioned piece of clothing. I think the Mormons may still wear something like that, but it was an old fashioned sort of undergarment for men. It looks a little silly to our modern eyes, but it's a thing. Okay. John Goodman completely freaks out. It's good. John Goodman, Charlie. He's such a big guy that we kind of expect him to like hold it. He's the practical one, and Barton is the crazy freak out one. So it's also surprising that Charlie just like loses his mind and he's vomiting and he's screaming and he's yelling and he's panicking. But he fixes it for Barton. Right, that Barton passes out and Charlie like gets that body out of there, and then he has to leave. Right, but Charlie, he helps him and he fixes it. Okay. All right, cool. I think we're done with this video, and I'll pick it up in the next one. All right. It's a very strange movie.